Are you excited, Freedom? Big things are about to happen. Well, it's time for the second announcement. Will it be door number 1, 2, or 3? Time will tell, but we're a little bit closer. I've been looking at what I think I'm going to do, trying to get up the guts to commit to it because it's a 1-year plan. Of course, this was a 1-year plan, and 1 year later it turned into 8 years later. So best laid plans. But what I've done is I'm slowly creating a pretty firm commitment to what I want to engage in into this next process. But it's not all about what I want to go do. Most of it is what I'm ready to let go of, and I think the willingness to let go. And that's, I think in many ways, it's even harder to let go than it is to open ourselves to something new. And so when I left you in the last video, I said, is it going to be door number 1, 2, or 3? And they're all kind of the same door, but they're different versions. So the first door is all creativity and inspired action. The second door is a specific target group. And the third door, which I've been walking around for over 8 years now, is I'll just give up and go back to normal life and do therapy or counseling or something like that. But that's always my absolute last option. So, but it's always sitting there. I still have my license, so it's still sitting there as an option. So door number 1 to me is how much creativity can I bring to the question, what does being human mean to you? And I've tried really hard this last year to explain it verbally, and obviously, as you can see, it's just not connecting at all, except for a tiny little bitty few. And so I'm willing to let go of trying to explain what being human actually means. And I want to move forward into actually showing you what it means and having conversations with others what it means to them. So that's the first thing I want to shift into. The second thing is it's really time for me to leave the desert. And I know there's this idea that I am going to live my entire life alone out in the middle of nowhere. Blah. I am very much an introvert. I very much need alone time, so that's never going to change. My personality's not going to change. But, you know, I've lived a lot of different ways over the course of my life, and I'm capable of living different ways. And this part is over for now. And so the second thing I want to move into is what I'm calling building relationships. And what I think is so key about that is this idea about how rampant loneliness is right now. And as an observer, people seem less and less able to even have relationships. And so many conversations have sort of devolved into telling people what you think. I had someone tell me, someone who was a friend of mine says, well, conversation is just, I wait for you to stop talking to tell you what I think. And I don't really enjoy those kinds of conversations. I'll participate in them. And I don't enjoy gossip. One of the things people who are drawn to the first responder lifestyle really notice is that once you get that window into real life, when you're in that crisis moment, all the BS drops away and you have these really intense experiences with people. Makes it very, very hard to go back to the superficial. And so I think we've lost a lot of our ability to have a real conversation where we're sharing part of ourselves and we're feeling both seen and heard. And I think people are desperate for that. And that's about the only thing I actually miss in terms of my engagement with other people. But the other half of that is that I'm interested in productive relationships. And what I mean by that is where we're working on a project or we're committed to something or there's something happening. I find most people just want to sit around, eat food, and gossip or talk about what they think or what they believe or talk about what other people think or believe. And that doesn't really hold any interest for me. So when I talk about productive, one of my favorite scenes in that movie Witness is when the Amish are building the barn, and the women are cooking and the men are building and the kids are involved. And I'm always like, well, I'd be rather building than cooking. But either way, there's this amazing experience going on where people are coming together and creating something and then seeing a visual representation of their energy. And that is what I mean about a productive relationship. And the third thing I want to focus on is this idea of rewarding loyalty. And what I mean by that is that I have written up a bucket list for freedom. He's 9.5. He's starting to have, that old dog stuff where he's got weird bumps, he's got a weird cough, he's just got some stuff going on. And so what I want to do for him, and there's a few things I want to do just with the dog. So I've created a bucket list, but really the bigger component of that is Brian is actually the one that brought this up to me, and it got me thinking about we don't reward long-term support and loyalty. And I mean that in that there was an article recently where this idea about social media is pushing to live fully, to be fully alive. And the way that they define that is high risk, adventure, and seeking opportunity or being spontaneous. And none of that is a long-term sustainable life. That's something that you do for a short window of time. And, for me, I don't put myself in the normal category. I've never desired to live like normal people, but that doesn't have anything to do with what I think people are happiest at. And most people are happiest when they have committed relationships with somebody that just knows you. You don't have to keep telling your story over and over again, which is why I quit traveling in the first place. I got tired. And there's something about somebody knowing your history and you can just sit and be with them and you don't have to do this whole explaining or catching up or superficiality that we have online. The reality is you really can only have that with a few people. But, long-term support and loyalty should be rewarded. Should be the kind of relationships that we're seeking out. And so that's really the third thing I want to focus on in the coming future here. So that's just a short version of what door number 1, 2, or 3 is going to look like. So that's the brief update. The next time I will tell you more specifically how I want to do all these things. Like I said, I'm still sitting with it, making sure I can do it, because all of this pushes my comfort zone, because I will be honest, I've been living in a bubble so long, it's going to be really hard for me to adjust to a new way of being in the world. But I believe that it's always good to challenge yourself, and this will be a challenge. So we're going to take a deep breath. I'm going to say I appreciate those of you who have spent some time with me, and I will see you next time.